And we are back with Robert Reich, David Stockman, Gillian Tett, and Zanny Minton-Beddoes. Bob, let me ask you, if you were back in the administration, what would you be doing about high oil prices? Because it does strike me that this is something that has the ability to add to a slowdown in the United States. Is there anything the administration can do?
Fareed, the irony here, the paradox is that there is really very little in the short term that any administration can do about oil prices and what really is the issue, and that is gas prices at the pump. That's what most voters react to very viscerally, and it's understandable. But an administration, you have a strategic petroleum reserve. You can threaten to use the strategic petroleum reserve and thereby essentially threaten speculators who are bidding up the price of crude oil around the world. But that's about it. And that's not a terribly useful thing to do under normal circumstances. Now, you're going to almost inevitably have some sort of restriction on supply over the next 2 or 3 years. Then maybe the administration, to prick that bubble, does need to talk about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. But I would hold off. I just don't think that we are going to see an oil crisis. I think that, when you look at all of these speculators who are, you have almost no bears in this market at all. When they are all bidding up the price of crude oil, almost anything can tip the balance in the other direction and force crude oil suddenly downward. We've seen that before, in May of last year, for example.
Do you think that's, what do you think will happen with oil? Because the demand certainly doesn't justify $105 barrel oil. I mean, China has...
I think you can address this decisively by stop beating the war drums right now. And Obama could do that. And he could say the neocons are history. The policy that they're talking about right now is the same thing that we heard in 201, 202, and 203. And he needs to clearly say that we're not going to attack Iran. We're not going to permit Israel to attack Iran. They are not part of the axis of evil. They're part of the axis of medieval. In other words, these are backward people that aren't going to threaten the Western world, and we need to get into a serious process of negotiation. If we did that, the price of oil would drop $30 within a few months, and all the speculators who are on the wrong side of the ship would learn a good lesson. But as long as the war drums continue to beat, as they are now, we're going to see this kind of speculative froth. It's not real. It's not supply and demand in the world today.
It's worth remembering that in terms of euros, the oil price right now is higher in Europe than it is in the US, relatively speaking, and that's simply adding to the pressure on the Eurozone economy. So it's a very nasty cocktail of issues right now that's feeding off each other.